Scrolling with Haley. Join Haley Caronia as she scrolls through the biggest headlines.
If you haven't watched this show before, we do blind reactions. I have not seen these videos, so I am seeing them for the first time with all of you. We're going to implement the tinfoil hat time segments and all the stuff you know and love. And I'm going to finish the show and answer some of your questions. Someone asked me what made you get into podcasting, and I was producing podcasts for other people. And I was like, I could do this for myself, and here I am.
Scrolling with Haley. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Thursday, July 9th, 7:33 a.m. right here on Jocks. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Big 12 Media Days now concluded, but Wyatt Wheeler was there covering Big 12 Media Days. He covers Kansas State at Wyatt Wheeler _. You can find him there on Twitter. Find his work at USA Today and CJ Online. Wyatt, we were kind of just talking about the Texas Tech noise. It's a little surprising to hear still some of the defensive manner in which it's discussed from folks within that Texas Tech program. I feel like it could have been extinguished a little bit by Brett Yormark, but him essentially saying, I'm not talking about it, I felt that may have stoked the coals just a little bit more and maybe generated more conversation. Just, I know you don't cover Texas Tech, but what were your thoughts of just the conversation, what it was like, how amplified it was, and then maybe your surprise at just how defensive Texas Tech still is when they discuss it?
You know, if you've interacted with these people on social media, whether it's Texas Tech fans and everything, they're not backing down. They think they should be in the SEC, Big Ten, whatever. I mean, they think they've been wronged with all this, and it's been just, I think 99% of the world is looking at them just kind of, they've been the fill-ins of the offseason, and they just feel victimized by all this. So it's really interesting. You know, Yormark went in with a plan to not comment on anything. I mean, of course, the first question was about it. He shuts that down. I'm sure you guys had a good laugh about his interaction with this Texas Tech media guy that went out there and tried asking his question, and Yormark just kind of gave him the finger a little bit without giving him the finger. So it was they go viral for that, and it just keeps the conversation going when there are good questions to be asked, whether it's about Cincinnati's role and everything. And Texas Tech does have a few questions, whether it's just, how the league went about how it did. So it's not going away anywhere anytime soon. It's just, it's been one of the more annoying things, and I just wish it'd go away. But, an NCAA letter goes to Cincinnati yesterday, starting to investigate some of the Sorsby stuff, and it's just going to be something we keep talking about until at least through the draft next year.
Yeah, at least we don't have to deal with it once games get started here. Hopefully, it'll be a footnote in the week's news. What exactly was the feel around how it was covered by the league in the media day coverage? Because I feel like they could have kind of put it to bed a bit, and yet they didn't really close the door, and that just allowed people to make their own conclusions here the last few days. So how do you think it was covered?
Hey, it just makes people more angry, especially on that side when it is a loud fan base and it feels like it's been wrong. Then it's the fan base that's going to represent you in the college football playoff more than likely. It's still a great roster that's going to compete for a championship this year, and whatever they do at the quarterback position, whether Will Hammond is healthy or not. But, that's going to be the big story in the league. And they had opportunities to go in with a plan to just say, scripted things. You had weeks. You had a month to practice this and decide what you were going to say to some of these questions and get out in front of it. But you just decide to go the easy route and just say, hey, we're not going to talk about this at all. But, it's just going to keep going when, Texas Tech fans feel like they've been wronged by tortilla traditions, and when they're trying to throw them on the field, and just things like that. This just added up over time to where, this is your premier program at the moment, and it's going to be nationally relevant, whether it's making some of these primetime games, whether it's a big noon kickoff, or just kind of getting some of those primetime windows to where it's going to be a major story that keeps going forward. And they just had they didn't do anything to shut it down.
Wyatt Wheeler has been at Big 12 Media Days. He covers Kansas State, and this is a team under Chris Kleiman that outside of last year, a little bit of a slip, has been really good. 3 consecutive 9-win seasons, 1 10-win season rolled in there. The roster we know at quarterback going to be strong. There were some departures through the portal. There were some players who were coming in through the portal. How do you view this roster versus maybe the last 4 or 5 that Chris Kleiman had entering seasons as the Kansas State head coach now under a new regime?
With those really good Kleiman teams, you could always bank on a pretty good offensive line. I mean, the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach from a couple of those seasons, now to Dallas Cowboys offensive line coach. You have some NFL guys in there to where you can really depend on that group. And I think that's a bit of a question going into this year, just how it's going to protect Avery Johnson when he's a guy that, he's good at moving in the pocket, but, his numbers go down really, really low when he's under pressure. So that's going to be a big question. I think Colin Klein's going to be a huge, huge upgrade as far as play calling goes, to where Avery's going to be able to use his legs a little bit more than he has over the last 2 seasons. And then you can say the same thing about the defensive front. There's been some really good guys that have come in over the last few years, some good linebackers at the same time, to where that's a question right now as they rebuild that. A lot of those, 2 of those guys are playing for Kurt Cignetti at Indiana now. So that's just kind of the strength that it lost. But, they've done a pretty good job through the portal, bringing in Wendell Gregory, Oklahoma State, freshman of the year in the Big 12 and on the defensive side of the ball. So there is some promise there, but there are questions that they're going to need to answer. But when you look at the schedule, they avoid Texas Tech, they avoid BYU, they avoid Utah, and just one of these weird scheduling things that comes with the 16-team league, where this team has a chance to be really good early on, and then they go into a Houston game in week 5 that can really just tell you, is this team going to be in the conversation for a championship? I don't think you rank them with the BYU and the Texas Tech and when you're tearing them out, but when you look at the schedule, they avoid those teams to where they're going to have a chance late in the year, as long as they take care of business, win a tough Houston game. But there's a lot to be excited about with this team.
This might be a little unfair, but in your estimation, what went wrong last year? Because a lot of the things I'm hearing you talk about now are the things I was excited about last year going into the season, and for whatever reason, it just kind of went sideways early. So what I just don't want to get burned again, I guess, selfishly. Yeah. I feel like all of us were really high on him last year, and I'm high on him again this year, and yet I'm hearing you, and I feel like some of the things you're describing as quote-unquote strengths were the strengths that made me like him last year. So why will it be different, you think?
Yeah, the upgrade in the play calling is going to be so tremendously better. I just watching what Colin Klein was able to do at Texas A&M. It's funny when you look at some of his lines and offensive lines and how they graded out, however much stock you want to put into Pro Football Focus. Those lines were never highly ranked, but it's still ranked. But the offense still ranked among the best at rushing and among the FBS programs. So, just the way Klein has been able to scheme things, just to be able to get running lanes open. There's a great just watching some A&M, watching his previous stint at Kansas State when calling plays. There's such a rhythm and flow to how he calls plays, to where the last 2 years there hasn't been. They were so bad on first downs. They were third downs. Just they drove the fan base crazy. How often they threw short of the sticks and ended up getting 4th and 3s and having to punt. And with Colin, there is a flow. There is creativity that makes sense in the moment. And this is where you try to get the most out of Avery Johnson. He's a 4-star, tremendous athlete, but just really hasn't lived up to the hype as much as, he had a fun first year when he was mixing in and out with Will Howard when he was at Kansas State, where Klein was able to use some of his rushing abilities that really went away. I mean, he had 5 rushing touchdowns in a game against Texas Tech years back, just as a freshman, because that creativity and he was allowed to use his legs as much as he was. So I just think the offensive play calling is going to be such an upgrade to where that's where that's where a lot of people can really put their stock into this team and think it's going to be better. But as I said, the offensive line's a question, the defensive line's a question. And if they can stop the run, it's just going to be, it can be a really fun season. But like you said, we were saying a lot of these things last year at the same time.
Wyatt Wheeler covers Kansas State, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Just one more on Avery Johnson. How much room is there to grow? He's over 5,500 yards, 48 career touchdown passes. You mentioned some of the good, some of the bad that we've seen from him in his career thus far. But do you feel like there is still major room for growth with him to turn into an even different quarterback than we've seen the last 3 years?
Yeah, I think so. It's just, I mean, you guys have watched the athleticism on this guy, and it's just not been utilized as well as it probably should have. You know, when I'm talking to him like yesterday, it's just about the freedom that he's going to be given to take off and make plays. And it's something that was kind of coached out of him a little bit over the last couple of years. And I think that's where Colin Klein comes in and really opens him up a little bit to where he can be that playmaker, using his legs, picking up first downs, taking whatever the defense gives him. So I look at that, you know, there have been moments throughout his career where he's just had those disastrous plays. You know, he falls apart in the fourth quarter, throws a key pick. I mean, Baylor game last year, threw a pick six at the wrong moment. Some of these losses over the years that it just felt like they were in control for three quarters. He throws an untimely interception. I mean, they had a chance last year against Texas Tech at home, and they fall apart in the fourth quarter. So there is a little bit more consistency that he needs, especially late in those games. But I think that's the next step. And, you know, the untapped potential is the big storyline with him. And you asked Colin about that yesterday. He said he just needs to win. And that's kind of true. I mean, he gets the credit if they lose, he gets the credit if they win. So that's the next step for them.
Wyatt, great stuff, man. Thanks for hopping on. I know you got a plane to catch. We appreciate the time this morning, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Wyatt Wheeler covers Kansas State, has been at Big 12 Media Days, sharing some thoughts on all the Texas Tech noise that was there at the Star in Frisco. Also, just a little bit on Kansas State, with Colin Klein taking over as the head coach, departing Texas A&M as their offensive coordinator, and a really good college quarterback that he begins his career with as the head coach in Manhattan, where he was one of the best players in school history as well. That's going to be a fun watch, what Kansas State could potentially put together this year. Follow him on Twitter at Wyatt Wheeler _. Find his work at CJ Online or at USA Today. More on Big 12 Media Days, more on Kansas State. Where would Avery Johnson fit potentially when it came to the best players returning to college football this year? One entity has a list out of their top 50 players. Did he make it? We'll discuss it. Who's at the top next on Jocks?
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, and Three-Man Front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.
Scrolling with Haley. Join Haley Caronia as she scrolls through the biggest headlines.
If you haven't watched this show before, we do blind reactions. I have not seen these videos, so I am seeing them for the first time with all of you. We're going to implement the tinfoil hat time segments and all the stuff you know and love. And I'm going to finish the show and answer some of your questions. Someone asked me what made you get into podcasting, and I was producing podcasts for other people, and I was like, I could do this for myself, and here I am.
Scrolling with Haley. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.